Welcome to Forward Focused. In each episode, we're helping you take another step toward becoming an effective, well-rounded leader. I'm your host, Jon Reusch, and in today's episode, we're coming at you a little bit differently than we typically would. I was honored to be asked to sit and have an interview with Caryn Prall, who's the host of The Messy Empire, as well as a business leader across several different businesses, most prominently within Keller Williams. Caryn asked to have a conversation with me about what true leadership is all about. The path to get there, the wins, the losses, the pains, and the successes along the way. This is a great peek behind the curtain into who I am as a leader, who I am as a person. I really hope that today's conversation pulls back some of the layers on what it takes to truly succeed and thrive and be that well-rounded leader that each organization truly deserves. So without further ado, let's listen in.
Welcome to The Messy Empire with Caryn Prall, where we prove to you that success is all about embracing the chaos and charging into the unknown.
Welcome to The Messy Empire. This is AJ Guzman here with our host Caryn Prall. So today we kind of revisited our episode on millennials in real estate and just marketing towards millennials. We had someone who's incredibly young, but also experiencing a great deal of success inside of the Keller Williams ecosystem. Caryn, who is this fella? How do you know him, and what do you know about him?
Well, and I want to say this is not a repeat episode. This is a whole new episode, but we're talking about, we talk about millennials, but more importantly, we talk about leadership. And it's Jon Reusch, and he is a leader in Michigan with Keller Williams, but he was not a realtor. And at 30 years old, he has 7 businesses, maybe 8, I'm not sure. Former team leader, operating partner, MAPS coach with 20 leader clients, and so many other businesses. But you know what really got me excited was his goal. His goal is so purposeful and so abundant and so fruitful. I mean, what it will yield for generations to come, it was magnificent to hear it.
Did it make you want to change your big goal at all?
100%. I'm like, wait a second, I have it all wrong. I'm not purposeful. I'm not specific. I need to listen to Jon. So I'm actually going to listen to this podcast probably 4, 5, 6 times because there was a lot of nuggets in here.
I think we've touched on it a few times on this podcast, and we've talked about EQ. Jon really dives into some specific tactics and some specific things that you could do to raise your emotional intelligence as a leader and as a business owner. So I think if that's the only thing you get out of this episode, regardless of what age you are, regardless of what role you want, you're going to take just a massive amount of value from this.
Yeah, this has nothing to do with Jon's age. It has everything to Jon's ability to be humble, to be hungry, willing to learn and listen to others and hear from them and respect and honor his partners. It was an awesome day.
I would agree. Let's dive right in.
Okay, so Jon, tell us who you are and your story from birth forward. No, I'm just kidding. Because when I met you, I was like, oh my God, that guy isn't from real estate and he's so smart and I need to find more of him, which is what my text was to you. Who do you know that's just like you that I need to be in business with?
I appreciate that. So here's kind of what I'll give you in like 3 minutes or less. So basically, I came from what you would think would be a privileged life, right? A privileged background. And I never once took that for granted. And I think sometimes, I'm just going to speak frankly and candidly, if that's okay. I think white men today don't always know how to show up.
Agreed.
And from day one, I grew up in an environment where I had every privilege, every opportunity, but I knew a lot of people that had opportunity that blew it. And I also knew a lot of people that worked so hard and never had the opportunity. And so I didn't miss the message at 15, 16, 17 years old, whether it was in sports, in school, or in volunteering, my time. I never missed the message around making the most of every opportunity, every conversation, every dialogue. So fast forward to entering college. I went to Central Michigan University, fire up chips. Right. I had to get that plug in there, right? So right in the center of Michigan. And I thought I wanted to go into sports broadcasting. Realized that I wanted to be a father and a husband first, and that traveling and being around the country probably wouldn't work out. So I made the shift, and I shifted into, at the time, sociology and psychology. I wasn't exactly sure what I wanted to do with my career, but I knew I wanted to make an influence. And I ultimately worked with 10,000 at-risk youth from the moment I was about 19 years of age to 24. And I traveled to high schools. I spoke about college access. I chaired and coordinated a college access program under a professor at CMU that was groundbreaking and won many awards. And what mattered most about that experience was it taught me that the skills that you learn in relationships you develop, it's time on task over time, truly. It doesn't just happen all at once. And so here I am at 23 years old, 24 years old. I now have my master's degree in educational leadership. I did leadership development programming around the state of Michigan in the Leadership Institute at CMU. I worked with all these students with so many cool stories, so many awesome backgrounds that, let's be real about it. Like, a lot of the students I worked with thought rent checks is what Americans who own a home think of a mortgage check. Like, that's just the normal. You have a mortgage, you have a rent check. And when you started to unlock the power of home ownership, the power of college access, and what a grant was and how that was different than a loan, all of these amazing things that really shaped me. And what I don't talk about openly often, but I will on today's podcast, I'm so proud of my mom today. She's 12 years sober. But growing up, she wasn't. And there was experiences in my life, good and bad, that to this day I carry with me that shaped me into who I am as a businessman, as an entrepreneur, and as a thought leader. And one of those is that it's always about results, and it's about building relationships with the right people at the right time, and understanding that pain today isn't always going to be pain forever. It's probably shaping you for something better down the road. And my mom and I have an amazing relationship today, and I can't be more proud of her sobriety and what she's doing today. Yet at times in high school and college, early college, there was pain. And so the guy that's sitting in front of you today at 30, and that's just me through 24, but I wanted to make that point because that shaped who I am. It shaped my experiences, and every one of those experiences, they stacked on what they're doing. And I guess I'll just end that piece with just the thought of you're not paid for what you're doing today. You're paid for all these experiences over time and the result or outcome of who you are today. And I think a lot of millennials, and it's not just millennials, it's every generation, but we get the rap of, wanting to be entitled or getting it today. We don't have the patience maybe. And I think if you can take that drive and hunger and focus and work on developing certain skills, whether that's in wealth management or building or communication or rallying people to a common purpose, whatever it might be, it's going to pay off eventually. It's going to hockey stick like Gary Keller tells us. It's just believing in that process and focusing your time on the right things. So my mother, my life, my experiences with at-risk youth and leadership development, it's been this perfect storm of who you're seeing today as an OP and MAPS coach at 30 years old.
There are so many things, like I just got the chills, that I want to dig into about that 3-minute conversation. So thank you for sharing and being transparent, because I am a daughter of an alcoholic, and it was a very tough world. It looked good on the outside, but the inside was a living hell sometimes. And through therapy and a lot of work, I'm much older and I'm just getting there. So you are leaps and bounds. So I credit you too for having the emotional intelligence to understand that there is work. But going back, I had a conversation today with someone, and I said, I've worked my butt off, and let's use the relationships that I've been able to create, right, for the past 20 years in real estate to move us forward, and you already got that. And so a couple of things I want to ask about your emotional intelligence, A, and B, you said open to every conversation, and I say yes to everything. And people sometimes get very frustrated with me because I overbook, I overcommit, and I overschedule. And boy, how has that helped me at my life right now in this stage, because I'm at the stage where I don't have anything else to prove. It's what do I want to do? Right. And you seem to have that internal confidence, and not just, I talk self-confidence, but you have the self-worth to understand that this is what I bring to the table and how do I share the gift? So
two things I hear there, right? The first would be around emotional intelligence, and the second around saying yes to opportunity, right? Okay. So when you think about emotional intelligence, a lot of people understand IQ. Like they're like, oh, that guy's really smart, or that girl's really, like, she gets it, right? EQ is a whole nother level of development. And it's the old adage of treat people the way you want to be treated, and it's more. So I think there's two key things to take away around emotional intelligence. The first would be read your room. Read who's next to you, who's across from you, and what is their story based on the different things that they're sharing or showing or showcasing. It's not about judging somebody. And that's where people, I think, lack the ability to separate someone's story from how it impacts their decisions about them. It's not about how you feel about them at all. It's about where they're coming from and understanding. That's the first thing. The second thing about emotional intelligence that I think is really undervalued, it's almost hard to articulate. Emotional intelligence is being able to empathize and sympathize, yet not lower your level of commitment to the conversation.
Expand on that.
So what I mean by that is, if you tell me that you had an alcoholic experience in your life, instead of spending 7 minutes to say, that's so terrible, you're such a strong and amazing human being, and I'm so proud that you are where you are today, I say, that's terrible that happened. I can't imagine the amount of muscle it took to get through that and the pain you're still working through. Talk to me about how you've turned that into a positive and impacted, and who's the top 3 people you've helped. So you're relating, you're understanding, and then you're moving into a positive space and you're connecting. And some people just don't read that. And the last piece around emotional intelligence of connecting is being real. So many people think they need to be something for something. We're not on an interview 24/7. Well, we are. We're being watched all the time, right? Everyone's watching. But if you are just yourself, it's not exhausting.
Yeah, I was, that was part of my work I had to do on myself, is my therapist saying, so how long have you been performing? Whew, that's a tough, because all I wanted was attention or love and affection from the people that I wanted it from the most, right? And boy, when I could break that wall down of that's what I was doing to get results, and how exhausted I was. Right. So imagine there's so many other people. And then going back to the racial injustice and everything that's going on too. And I respect what you said, is I know what I grew up with and I paid attention. Also, I have Black agents that say, right, I can't be authentic because people expect me to show up a certain way because the color of my skin. I have to show up differently than who I am to get ahead in this world.
Yeah, I mean, that's unfortunately very true, and that's been very true for many years. And microaggressions are a very real thing that people, they just aren't educated enough to understand what they really are, to think about, do I have to change the way, my vernacular, the way I'm speaking right now? Do I have to change the way I dress? Do I have to change the way I make eye contact, the way I shake hands, the way I hug somebody? These are really important things in our society every day. You do business with people that you love and respect and trust. If you are being exposed to something you don't love, respect, and trust simply because you haven't seen it before, you're not going to do business with somebody as quickly. It's a big deal. And unfortunately, there's some people that have a counter narrative today that are trying to make it something that it isn't. It's just simply about being accepted and moving toward equity in the way that it should be. And so I stand behind what Keller Williams is doing with Y4C, 2T, ES, and I stand behind what we're doing in our initiatives, and I applaud that committee and the countless people around the country that are working around the clock to make this a more equitable, not only place of work, but just a country, a place that we want to be proud of. Not easy.
I had an agent say to me yesterday, she said, she's on the task force, and she said they are moving at lightning speed. And to hear her say that just brought so much pride that it is not just talk.
Yeah, it isn't just talk. To your second point, Caryn, that I appreciated on your question is about saying yes to opportunity and time blocking. It really comes down to leverage. When you say yes to something, you're saying no to others. And if you don't have a clear priority around where you're headed, there's sort of three things I look for when I say yes to something. First and foremost, you need to think about, am I passionate about what I'm being asked to do? Do I have some level of passion or care? Number two, does it economically drive what I'm doing? Will I make money from it? Or will it be towards a philanthropic cause that I'm passionate about, right? Even if it doesn't impact my bottom line. And then, if it's got those first two things, the last piece is you have to think about, is it scalable? Is it something that you can do sustainably over time? And is it something that eventually you can hand off to somebody else or replace your time with? Because we know if you say yes to things, you're going to eventually say yes to something else that takes your time away from this. And I think it boils down to models, systems, tools, and people. And right. And we're taught that by Gary Keller at Keller Williams all the time.
So going back, what did you do before you decided to become a team leader, and how did they describe to you what your world would look like? Was it what you expected? And you didn't come from real estate, so any hurdles or obstacles you had, or stories that you told yourself before, you had to earn the street cred with the agents that, yeah, I'm your leader, and you came in hard and fast, and you showed very quickly that you were in fact their leader.
Yeah, sure. We have 3 hours, right? That's what you told me?
No.
So before real estate, I was an academic advisor and career consultant with a local university. If I'm looking for talent in the real estate world to run my office or be a part of my mega team or real estate team, 100% look for talent at universities, community colleges. Look for people with a heart of a servant, a heart of a teacher that are not financially being rewarded. It will pay off for you. Anyways, do that. It has paid off. My team leader right now is an ex-high school teacher. Okay. So I'm telling you, it pays off. Okay. So anyways, I had hit a lid financially. I had hit a lid in red tape. That's all you really need to know about that experience. And so I walked into my supervisor's office and I said, hey, I've loved my time here. I respect you. I respect what we're doing. And I'm actively looking for opportunity both in the university elsewhere and outside of the university altogether. Long story short, I started doing some researching on like career developer, trainer, consultant, corporate training, things like that. And Keller Williams kept popping up as like a top, imagine that, right? A top cultural workplace, great community, great opportunity, etc. So I started going local into Michigan, and I started talking to different Keller Williams operators and owners. And I don't know, about 7 months into this process of searching and kind of just fielding several opportunities in different industries, Keller Williams kept popping back up. And the book, The One Thing, really attracted me to just what could be being time blocked, counterbalancing, chasing one rabbit, the 80-20 principle, and then making that your one thing out of the 20%. So I digress. I was attracted to the multiple streams of income at Keller Williams. I was attracted to the culture. Those were the two things that really were, the sexy to me, right? I was like, wow, I can make money in different ways, which I was making $40,000 a year. So that was cool. And then I was like, the culture here is one of abundance, of learning, of mindset, which I don't currently feel I'm in, right? And keep in mind, I have my master's degree in educational leadership. I was working every day with faculty and professors, but it was so much politics with zero reward. It was just all red tape. So I jumped. And the thing that made me jump after getting an opportunity and interviewing with the ALC and at Keller Williams Lakeside and with Dave Claft, the OP at the time, and that team, we'll talk about that in a second. I watched Steve Harvey's video, Jump.
One of the best video, I just got the chills again, of all time. That video, my God, if Steve Harvey didn't preach it to that audience that day.
I know.
Life changing.
And Caryn, for those who don't know, what does Steve Harvey do in between takes of his show?
He talks to the audience about wealth, building, opportunity, motivation.
Abundance, right?
Yeah.
And I didn't know that. Now, keep in mind, that's my millennial, sheltered, entitled self at the time. I was 26 at the time, okay? I didn't know that he did that. It blew my mind. I thought that was so cool. And what I realized is that he was able to do it because he built multiple businesses, multiple streams of revenue, and he was so influential, he earned the right to have that platform. So I watched that video 3 times. I went to my then girlfriend, Haley, and I said, babe, I really think I need to do this. And she goes, I support you. You always make the decisions and then you make them right. And I jumped. And September of 2016, I jumped into real estate as a team leader with no real estate experience. And my first 90 days, I asked a ton of questions. I'm learning based. I asked, what brought you to Keller Williams? What keeps you here? If you could change one thing about the company, what would it be? What does a life of abundance look like to you? All these questions, right? And I was just compiling notes, and I did not make any big change to our team, our staff, for over a year. I just asked questions and I recruited. I got into a relationship with top agents, and when I would get the objection of, because I was told that it was an office manager position, it was something that was focused on recruiting, but at the time there was no market share requirements. It was just, bring in agents, run your career nights, and, make this office hum essentially. And we were profit sharing at the time about $197,000 a year. We were a top 300 office. It was a good office. It was fine. It was good, right? It wasn't great. And so I asked those questions. I was authentic. I was real. I reread and read and read and reread the MREA and the one thing over and over. I read Shift, and I practiced. I remember practicing the models on a piece of paper, the economic model, the financial model, the organization. I just went through them, and I went through them. And then I did a needs analysis on my ALC, and I did a needs analysis on my OP, and I did it. And I started doing these things, and come like Christmas of that year, within that first 6 months, I got it. It clicked. I can't say exactly what it was. It just all came together. My story, my background, my leadership development, and then the beautiful models and systems at Keller Williams. And the team at Keller Williams Lakeside had a beauty. Here's the last thing I'll say about it. Had a beautiful combination of youth and energy and new perspective and ideas that was learning based into models and systems, as well as I think I calculated it was like 95 years of real estate experience. So it was this beautiful blend of between the broker and ATL and OP, and then myself and other folks on our team of wealth and depth and breadth, I guess is the best way to say that. Like, I would move quickly. I would move, across. If you can't tell, I have a lot of thoughts. I talk with my hands. I'm Italian. Sorry about that. And then my team, they would slow me down and say, well, we've seen this before, and let's fine tune your thought. And we would level that up. So that's really what happened in the first couple of months, first year of me gaining buy-in and trust of the agents, getting referrals. I grew their business. We plugged them into models and systems. We got them going. From year 1 to 2, we grew profit share by $165,000 in 1 year.
Yeah, that is huge, because many ALCs would say, we don't want a team leader that doesn't have real estate experience. They won't be able to have conversations. But we're what I thought of you when I met you that day, and literally I was taking notes furiously while I was on a panel when you were talking, right? So that's when the panelists are like, and I think we joked about it that day, like when the panelists are taking notes from what each other is saying, like we still have a lot to learn. And I thought, my God, where did the OP find him? Where is he? And I need more, right? And you were captivating to me. And the fact that you didn't have a real estate background had nothing to do with what I felt about what your expertise and where your knowledge lies. And so as KW is shifting and the pandemic and everything that's changing in our world, you have been a tipping point for me to go, I'm going to look at a non-realtor team leader inside my organization. I'm actually looking at 2. I just made an offer today on 1 because you were that person that goes, okay, Caryn, get out of your own way. Just because that's always been done. You are becoming that old middle-aged lady named Caryn. Just kidding. And so I want to thank you because there was a reason I was put on that panel with you that day. And it was to teach me a lesson, because everything is a lesson for me, or an understanding of something better every time I'm somewhere. And it may have taken me 2 and 3 years to wake up to it, but I really credit you single-handedly on opening my world up that way. So that's why I have mad respect for you.
Thank you, Caryn. That's really humbling to come from you. And I sincerely appreciate that. And I want to be super clear on something. You got to find someone who is learning-based, who's humble, and who's willing to listen to those around them who have come before, who have different experiences. I would not be sitting here today or on that panel with you 2-3 years ago without the leadership team in place. And that's not a platitude. That's not a plug to shout out my team. I sincerely and genuinely mean that there are people in my life, in my world, that have shaped me into who I am as a leader. And so I appreciate that. I appreciate you. I also appreciate them and the story that they helped shape.
Well, that's why I said, who's the OP that had enough brains to go hire that person? Because I have been having career visioning conversations with 3 different candidates, and 2 of them are not in the industry. And they are so much smarter than me. They are so much more strategic than me. And it's just a whole different world. I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't even know what I'm missing. But that was the awareness it brought me.
Well, I'm happy to put you in touch with him. He's still a great partner of mine. He works with me every day on other ventures and Keller Williams Lakeside. And so we can talk offline about that if you'd like. And also, one more thing I'd add, it's exactly what Gary Keller said 5 years ago. If you recall, he said, when he talked about recoring, that's a strategic way of saying we're going to absolutely turn this upside down and reshift where Keller Williams is headed. And it wasn't a bad thing. It was a call to action. And certain people were called to it and did, and others did not. And so by you focusing on recoring and saying what I got to do differently and how I can reach, you were called to that action. And other people, unfortunately, they're no longer OPs. They're no longer team leaders, right? Because they have decided, they made a decision, whether it was their choice or not, they made a decision to not record. And so that's exactly where it's at. And with your level of talent and where you're headed with your empire, literally, there's nobody that shouldn't be honored to be in business with you, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't settle for what you think is the best. You absolutely owe it to yourself to look for somebody that's going to continue to push you to that next level and to allow you the capacity to create more opportunity, which I know that's exactly what you're doing. So that's exciting.
But that's hard because I, at times, led with my ego first, right? You talked about being humble and learning based. Amen. And I would be threatened, in a previous world of someone coming up that's better, smarter, faster than me. And now I think with age, so you have wisdom way beyond your age, where my wisdom's probably behind a decade of my age. And what I realize in that is, wait a second, I need to go hire the next brighter, because I'm tired, right? I've been a team leader for 11 years. And so, John, you know how taxing, nobody understands how hard a team leader works until you're a team leader that is working, right? And I think, okay, these people are so much bigger than me, but what world could they bring me into? Because my OP invested in me. And so when I have more opportunities, who's my first partner, like yours is to you, is Pete, right? I don't do anything without Pete. So it's a natural assumption of an agreement we have. AJ and I have an agreement for anything around our podcast and that brand. We have an agreement. We're going to do it together. And so that's where finding people to be in business with, because I find OPs like to be a one-man show and run a market center by themselves. And I'm thinking nobody succeeds alone. And boy, is that not true in an OP position. Oh, that's funny that you have that shirt on that says no one succeeds alone. Right? So about the beauty of having partners, and I don't know that it's ideal in real estate business, I'll tell you. I think that's a totally different environment, because the operating principal role is there is one decision maker at the end of the day, right? A real estate partnership business does not work that way. And so I think I want to make it very clear. I talk about my partner, and people say, well, I know that you and Pete do it. I'm like, totally different business. At the end of the day, the rules are in writing of how it's all going to lay out.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that, John? Like that exact thought of differentiating having a partner in the operations of a market center versus having a partner on a real estate sales team?
Yeah, so I think they're a little bit different. I think as an operating partner of a company, you have a franchise agreement with Keller Williams International that is around the growth of your company, that supports Keller Williams Realty International, and you need to have that decision maker. I think on a real estate team, it's a little bit more loose because you don't have that corporate structure or that parent franchise, right? That's there. So Caryn could decide that, I'm in charge of A through J and you're in charge of the rest, right? And you can just set it and forget it in that sense. At the end of the day, there needs to be a decision maker in everything that you do. And when you have a partnership in real estate, if it's in writing and you've CYA'd and you've essentially put a prenup in place, I think that's huge. A lot of realtors don't understand the power of a prenup. Prenups actually are designed to stop you from getting married. If you don't want to sign a prenup, you're not getting married for the right reason. That's my opinion. I'm happily married 2 years yesterday. So all good. Thank you. So with that being said, as an operating principal, you have a responsibility and a power that is very few and far between. I mean, there's less than 1,000 in the United States, right? There's, 650, 600 OPs. So you really want to be strategic in who your partners are. And so to that point, AJ, that you asked, as OP, the wisdom comes from strategically finding partners. That doesn't just mean in money, by the way, that will give you selfless advice. And they will tell you how it is, even if you don't want to hear it, because they ultimately want you to thrive. And they want your enterprise to thrive because your purpose is larger than yourself. Partners are going to tell you the truth. They're going to show up when it's not sexy to show up. And I think some OPs have lost sight of that a little bit. And it's not a bad thing. It's not that they don't want to be a great OP. Don't get me wrong. Like, they want to be the best OP possibly. But just because you're a great realtor or a great mega agent doesn't always mean that you're going to be the greatest OP on the planet, because OP is not about ego. It's not about the shining and the glory. It's about the agent. It's about the market center, and it's about taking market share and growing the opportunity for the people around you. That's a tough pill to swallow for some people. It's wearing a completely different hat.
So, John, you were a successful team leader, obviously, and one of the top team leaders in the company from day one. Then what made you decide? Because it is, people think from the outside it's a natural progression to go from team leader and OP to OP, and it is. But I don't think it's for everybody, because I used to think the OP did nothing when I was a team leader, right? And then I became an OP, and I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, everybody who I said never did anything. Yeah.
That's funny.
Did you have any of those experiences at all?
I have. The thing, and I don't know if this is natural for everybody, and I would actually throw it back to you to ask you this question before I answer. When I moved from team leader to OP, it also came with opportunity to invest in and open 4 more businesses. And so I think that's the part that, as a team leader, I never saw. I didn't understand the title, the mortgage, the insurance, my podcast, my MAPS coaching. That was just a whole another level of thinking. Was that your experience as well, as you made that kind of progression in other areas of your business?
100%, because I thought I was a big thinker, because I had big dreams and I had big aspirations. What I didn't take into account is every business in this entire country is based on a relationship, right? The world runs on relationships. And I actually connected today with somebody who I might sign this massive business deal because of a relationship I've had with someone since I was 5 years old. And you just, when we say open to the opportunity, you just never know. One of my investors in my market center is a girl I went to junior high and high school with. And I moved away for 20 years, called her, and Pete and I met with her. And I said, what are you doing? She's like, well, Caryn, you were like the mayor in high school. You called and you told me to come, so I came. And now she's an investor with me in a market center and a top team. And so I look at everything, and I'm really proud of relationships and being integrity. So my number one question when I'm interviewing is, how long have you had your longest friend? Because I need to know from people that there is a sustainable relationship throughout their years. And even when I'm interviewing my virtual assistant candidates in the Philippines, I ask them that same question too. No one is immune to that question. And if they want to be in business in my world, because it matters who you're in business with. And my gosh, I did not get it as a team leader, as like the opportunities, like you were saying.
Right. So to answer your question, 16 years is my longest friend.
Good job.
Thanks. Going back, I guess what I would say is that advancement of why I went from team leader to OP, it was pretty simple. There's two things. I'm a big believer in law of the lid, right? John Maxwell, 100%, I'm all there. The OP I worked with and was OP for over 18 years, phenomenal leader. Somebody that has a heart that is just unbelievable, okay? And I could see that he wasn't going to be in that seat forever. And so the conversation him and I got into was, I would love to remain in Michigan at Keller Williams Lakeside and continue to expand our reach, our presence, our market share, what we're doing, and build out a transitional plan with you. Instead of, because too often in business transitions, it's, oh shoot, I should have retired 2 years ago. Who can I find? It's never, I'm thinking about over the next 5 years, I'm going to do X, Y, Z. So who are people and the right people I can put into place and sort of transition. So for me, it was, if he would have came back and said, hey, I want you to be team leader 2 more years and then X, I would have done it. I love the TL role. I still recruit. I like it. I enjoy it because recruiting is attracting. That's a whole nother thing. The OP opportunity allowed me to have more influence. It allowed me to get into opportunities in different businesses as well. It also allowed me to scale my maps business. As team leader, I never had more than 7 or 8 clients just because of what I was doing. As OP, I have 20. So that's the reason why I took that jump. Was I asked myself, can I find somebody that can do what I was doing at least 80% as good as I was right now? And can I get them up to that 100% or better? And I found that person who's talented, who is going to go very far in our ecosystem. And we made that transition. And so that's why. It wasn't just because it was the next logical step. It was an opportunity to get equity in a company. And I was offered equity as a team leader too. After certain results, they said, what do you want? What do you got? I had some equity before OP. That wasn't what it was about. It was about what the next decade would look like, not maybe the next 2 or 3 years.
Now, what's interesting is you made that decision a lot earlier in your TL career than most TLs get the opportunity to. So we're talking about speed here. And one of the things that people are tuning in for, like, we love to talk about kind of these principled decisions. And that's really like what it sounds like has been guiding you this whole way. Like, you have a few key principles and a few key core values that have really helped guide you to where you are today, and it helps you achieve success along the way. What would be kind of interesting is during the course of those 4 years, or those, 3.5, 4 years, what hard skills, like what boots on the grounds tactics did you really learn that you think are going to help propel you into this coming decade and into this next phase of building your legacy?
So the adage of people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care, I don't think that needs to be improved on. I think that's exactly it. I started taking like staff and Dofi to lunch I would pick one a month, and we would go out, and I'd kind of like unbutton the tie or the collar, and I'd say, talk to me, like, what do you love about your job? What do you hate about it? What's going on? So the first thing I would answer that with is authenticity showed up in ways that I didn't even, I guess, realize at the time. And I'm seeing show up more and more now. Like whether you look at politics or you look at athletics in the United States or you look at any of our industries, the thought leaders or the people that excel are authentic. They're real, they're genuine, and you don't always agree with what they're saying, but you know what you're going to get. So by taking people to lunch or picking their brain or just talking to them, like I would come back from vacation, and the first thing I would do as team lead, I'd take my AT out to lunch. On the last day of my vacation, she and I would go to lunch. Talk to me, good, bad, ugly. Who showed up? Who didn't? How did that work? What was your frustration while I was gone? What system do we need to tweak? Because I was gone, it didn't work. You know, all that stuff. And she's like, who are you? Like, who does that? I'm gonna, you know, but that's just that's who I am, right? Like, so I would say that somebody that is consistently learning based, they're consistently authentic. They're asking purposeful questions that don't begin with why. They're more so driven by who, what, where, when, and how. There's somebody that is open to solutions. They're open to feedback and critiques. I have an adage, don't come to me with a problem until you have two solutions, and in those two solutions, what ALC member have you talked to about it to get perspective from an agent, and what other leadership or executive leadership member have you talked to about it? Now that's more my OP role, but that's now my thought. Like, you're not getting to me with a problem until you have two solutions, that are tied to an ALC member because they're on ALC for a reason, and that you've gone through an MCA, a team leader, a PC, like somebody that's a thought leader in my organization I've hired, because let's be completely honest, I hired them for a reason. And if I take the meeting without their respect and sign off, why to even have them in the first place? So the third would be success through others, understanding leverage at a really high level and letting go of those decisions, yet taking ownership. I think people have a problem with ego because they don't want to face the ownership of the decision that was made. They don't want to say, you know what, I put that person in charge of that, or I empowered them. They made a decision. It's not their fault. It's my fault that I didn't clarify, and I'm going to have a sit down with them about that accountability. I think that is what's needed in 2020 and beyond. Yes, you need to have open-mindedness around technology and incorporating, but those things I think are transferable to any decade. I would work for any leader. I said at the start, be the leader you wished you had. I'd work for any person that did those three things.
You know, I had a big leadership lesson. Debbie Frapp has been my MAPS coach for 10 years. And she just had a big lesson for me that I took a lot of value from, probably the most value or the most awake I've been around it for a couple of years. And that lesson, tell me how far I'm off, if I'm off. But my lesson was, I have some people in our organization that are waiting for me to tell them what to do. And it's not because they want to please me. It's because they want to blame me when it doesn't work or they don't succeed in the role. And so I'm really pushing back as a operating partner or a general manager on them saying, I said, no, what do you think? What resources have you gone to? Who in the network, in the group have you asked? Because I thought it was just because they want to please. But actually, I missed that whole world of blame.
Yeah, so I would I guess my commentary on that would be, why are they so afraid of whoever gets blamed?
Ego.
Okay. And so I would explore that with them, and I would ask them about their vision of where they see themselves in the organization that I'm running. And then the next question would be, like, how can I help you get to where you need to be? Ego is something that you just need to work through. And once you realize that I'm not bringing ego to the conversation, and so it's okay for you not to bring it, typically they're okay with that. And that might be what you were getting at. Because you said earlier, I ran organizations from ego previously, or I had ego previously. And of course it rears its head. It rears its head in my organization too. Like, oh, I wasn't asked to do XYZ. Okay, I could do it better. But that's not what being an OP is about. In my opinion, it's about you are ultimately judged on your success through the people that you rally towards your purpose. That is it. And I look for people that want to build their opportunity or wealth through the Keller Williams Lakeside opportunity. If I know a lot of talented people that don't fit in my organization, they just don't, right? So I think it's more about fit. It's right seat, right bus, and it's timing. And it's less about like, oh, this person got blamed or this person got blamed. Everyone makes mistakes. I make mistakes every single day.
Well, you said it from the very beginning. It's how we learn. I learned from my mistakes far faster than I do from things that I've done well. I'm like, well, yeah, that was easier. It was in my comfort zone. It's when I screw up, and like now Pete and I joke about it. Like, well, we're not going to do that again. Like, it's become a joke between us of how bad can we screw it up, and we have to course correct quickly, because I think making mistakes is the biggest opportunity we have to be better. I mean, it just is. Like, oh, and then owning it. Like, I'm going to screw this up, or I really screwed it up, or I failed. Like, I did it yesterday as an OP. I said I wasn't going to talk on our leadership meeting PowerPoint, but I'm a high D, and then the person speaking wasn't going fast enough according to what I thought, even though I had said we need to make sure we use all the time. So then I was like, typical Caryn, and then I rushed it, and then we'd like 20 extra minutes to spare, which then ruined everything. So I had to go back and be like, dude, I totally effed that up for you. I'm so sorry. That is on me. Like, crap, I did exactly what I said I wasn't going to do.
And you owned it.
Oh, yeah, because I did. I butchered that. And I mean, every way to Sunday. So for sure. And guess what? I learned. And I'm in business with people I love that give me a lot of grace too. So that helps a lot. So, okay. So you're 30 years old, married 2 years, OP of a market center, have 83 other businesses already. What's next?
So my ultimate goal, Caryn, is, it's kind of funny because I think I could actually increase the goal now. However, I have wanted and I've aspired toward making 50 millionaires in my life. 50 millionaires who have a purpose and cause that's also philanthropic. So it's very important to me. It goes back to my roots with working with youth. So I've helped create 2. And I have 48 more to go, minimally, right? So what's next for me is I'm going to continue to expand my platform. I'm going to continue to build great relationships. I'm going to continue to look for opportunity that allows me to have impact on a scalable level. So what I mean by that is, like, if I can throw one rock into a river or a pond and it ripples, that's great. But if I can teach 10 people to do it, imagine that. If I could teach 1,000 people to do it, imagine that. It's that kind of idea. So I want to work with real estate professionals and entrepreneurs who are looking to scale and build their business for that next level. That's what Forward Focus is all about. That's what Keller Williams Lakeside is all about, is taking agents from here to go to here and plugging into our technology systems and tools. So that's kind of what's next, is really fine-tuning the different business ventures I'm a part of, narrowing my focus into really helping people level up and where they're going. I have to hit those 50 millionaires created. Has to happen.
I love that goal. I think it's magnificent. And you're the first person I've heard of a goal like that. So that gives me so much energy and inspiration. Like, crap, who am I going to do that with? AJ, obviously. But what a motivator for me to really think specific and purposeful around that. So thank you.
Well, and I'm hoping that it's 51, because if I can help 50 people become millionaires, that means I'll be a millionaire.
Well, you already are, because it is right, the mindset of be, do, have.
That's right.
And we forget what that looks like. And you really are a testament, like, just sitting back, and I'm interested on AJ's perspective too about this conversation. But man, you really came in and absorbed the models, and you didn't fight your way to understanding it. And boy, how many years ahead you are of the rest of us. And thank you for being so open to the opportunity of KW, because typically someone with a master's degree in educational leadership, this would not be like, I'm going to go work for a real estate company. I'm going to go own a real estate company, right? I'm going to go just coach real estate leaders across the entire country. And how cool. So congratulations. It's pretty sweet.
Thank you. One of the things that I find in my MAPS coaching on a regular basis, and I experienced as a team leader, and now I'm seeing from the OP world, is the relationship between team leader and OP. where I think it works best is when it's a partnership, where it is something that both individuals need to be all in for it to work. And what I mean by that is team leaders, you're recruiting, you're focusing on the leading activities that build market share, that build company revenue, which is company dollar, and of course, ultimately build profit. And OP, it's creating, you're almost that chief broomer. So if you think of like Jack Welch and his analogy at GE, you're brooming away the issues. It doesn't mean you're physically brooming it away yourself. You're hiring people as well to keep your team leader focused. So if your team leader is getting bogged down with broker questions all the time, every day, they're not going to be as successful in grossing 20 agents a month. It's not going to happen. You are now the lid to that team leader's potential if you hired the right TL, right? So I would just encourage, if you aren't meeting with your team leader every week, here's the rhythm that we have at Lakeside. I meet with my team leader every day for 10 minutes. It's a 10-minute rundown. We talk about the good, the bad, the ugly, the wins, the losses, and what's the goal for the next day. Who are we calling? What does that look like? What must we do? Every single day, 10 minutes. If you're an OP and that doesn't sound good to you, that's something, if you can't give 50 minutes a week to talk to your team leader, that's something to think about. It's just something to think about of, is this the role? You asked me earlier, Caryn, what's the OP role look like for the next 10 years? That is a pretty minimum standard, that you're talking with your team leader every day and having accountability around who they're talking to, what they're doing, and how you can help. That's my opinion. It's working at Lakeside. Number two, I would say that as OP, you're continually reminding people of the vision. Where are you headed? Why does 20% market share matter? Why does it matter to the consumer? Why does it matter to your leadership team? Why does it matter to your agents? All three of them are going to have different responses to why it matters. The consumer is going to say, yeah, I want to list my house with the person or brokerage that had 70% of the listings. That makes sense to me. I'm going to list. Your team leader or your leadership team is going to say, I want to get compensated by the company that is taking 70% of the listings. It makes sense. I'm going to be paid more with the right structure if we take more business. That makes sense. I'm attracted to that vision. And then lastly, your agents are going to say, what would it look like if I could learn from my top agents who are taking 70% of the listings in that area, and then I find it in my farm and do the same thing? I'm attracted to that opportunity. Oh, and by the way, if I get technology and a culturally competitive environment, and I get the wealth building opportunity of profit share, I start adding up all the reasons Keller Williams makes sense, and I say, I'm all in. If you as an OP are not continually reminding your people of that opportunity, you're going to find yourself going, why do jobs keep coming back to my plate? Well, why can't I find the right talent? Right, Caryn? I mean, that's what I've seen. I have seen this time and time again.
But you're an observer, and you pay attention. So I just did a call today with the owners of Keller Williams Worldwide regions. Okay. So these are people that are looking to get in business with operating partners. And have you talked to Keller Williams Worldwide at all? Have you done anything?
Not recently. No, not recently.
Okay. I'm going to tell JP he's got to get you on, because I said to them today, if you have an operating partner that you're going through the process with who doesn't believe in the model, doesn't believe in the system, doesn't believe in Gary Keller or where we're going, remember, this is the best they're ever going to show up, is during this process, right? You're dating them. So it's the best they're ever going to show up. Exactly. And if you continue to ignore the red flags, because trust me, I've done it, and hired them anyway, every problem you think you have will be magnified times 1,000, and your market center will not be a Keller Williams.
That's exactly right. That's it. That's it right there. That's exactly right.
Oh, I'm glad we're on the same page. I really wish you had twins, triplets, brothers mindset. So I'm going to challenge you to go make millionaires, because I want you. I just need you to find them for me, because you're young and have a lot to bring to the table. So it was a pleasure today.
So I'm so excited. My podcast is getforwardfocus.com, and the podcast is Forward Focus for the Well-Rounded Leader. And it's all around helping people be the best leader that they can be, and the leader that their organization, their family, their people deserve. So I cannot wait. Go check it out. I'd be so humbled if you checked out getforwardfocus.com.
If you found value in today's content, please be sure to subscribe. so you never miss a lesson to be the leader that you deserve to be. Until next time, lead on.